Welcome back to Transcriber from Reddit. Today's topic comes from the subreddit exLutheran. This post was posted by user Don't Eat the Cookies Mom. The title of the post reads, "Just like the student/teacher sex scandal at WLC last year, Wells again fails to protect women." Again is in all caps. The body of the text reads, "Women are prey at Wells schools." And there's a link that goes to kstp.com/5, and the gist of the link reads, Minnesota Department of Human Rights settles sexual assault lawsuit against Plymouth school. Before I go to the link, I'm going to read to you the top 2 comments below this post. First, posted by user JJ Craker. This comment says, "Truly, these sorts of occurrences are inevitable consequences of no sex education. Instead, they continue to indoctrinate about women submitting and how women simply can't be gifted with some talents. A woman can be fiercely independent, strong, intelligent, capable person, and these teachings can still tear her self-worth down bit by bit, parentheses, speaking from my own experience, and parentheses. Solution, clearly communicate to girls and women that they do is in italics, have autonomy over their bodies, ideally with age-appropriate sex education. And for F's sake, recognize the equality of people of all genders." Sorry for the rant. I'm just so very, very sick of saying the same things for nearly 3 decades now. Next comment that I'm going to cover is the one that's posted by user Professional Desk 6008. They reference part of JJ Craker's comment, the part that begins with, "Instead, they continue to indoctrinate about women submitting and how women simply can't be gifted with some talents." End. Professional Desk then says, "Oof, this hit me on a personal level this week. I told my oldest that I really like the principal at their new public school, that she is in all caps, seems wonderful. At 10, my oldest said, quote, 'Whoa, a female principal! That's really rare, if even allowed at all,' end quote. Despite being a household that does not endorse the Wells view of women, parentheses, I'd go so far as to call my husband a feminist, end parentheses. It was not enough to combat the 3 years of indoctrination at a Wells school." Now, you would be completely in the right to ask, who are they talking about? What school is this? Let me show you. The link from the Reddit post leads to this article. Minnesota Department of Human Rights settles sexual assault lawsuit against Plymouth school. Before we read that, we need to jump to the article that came previous to this, called Doubting Miranda. Before I begin reading this article, I want you to know this. The accused here, or should I, but I think I would better say person of interest. The person of interest here is Adam Wiechmann, spelled Wiechmann. The person who's the victim here is Miranda Wade. This incident happened back in 2014. And as far as anyone knows, Adam Wiechmann has not faced any kind of justice regarding his alleged actions in this case. Now I will begin reading the article. This was originally published October 28th, 2019, and updated as of January 27th, 2022. Written by Kirsten Swanson. The title reads, Doubting Miranda. High school principal accused student of making up sexual harassment claims. The article reads as follows. When Miranda Wade is spelled W-A-A-D-E, was 14 years old, she reported to her high school principal that she'd been sexually harassed and assaulted by 2 classmates. Instead of launching an investigation, the principal at West Lutheran High School in Plymouth accused Wade of making the story up, ignored key evidence that supported her claims, and refused to re-enroll the teenager in school the following year, according to internal school documents and police reports obtained by 5 Investigates. Side note, 5 Investigates are the journalistic team that's behind this article and other related articles. I continue reading. Records obtained by 5 Investigates include a text message from one of the male students who harassed Wade, admitting he tried to touch her in a sexual way, a recording of a police interview with the principal, and state records that detail how the school failed to follow its policies. Quote, "No one was believing me," end quote, Wade said. Quote, "I just didn't want to talk to anyone about it because I thought it didn't matter," end quote. The teen and her family later turned to the Minnesota Department of Human Rights. After a 2-year-long investigation, the Minnesota Department of Human Rights found Wade's story credible and sued West Lutheran in July for discrimination and retaliation. The case, which is playing out in Hennepin County District Court, is significant because the state rarely takes this action, according to an attorney who specializes in sexual harassment cases. As Wade watches the case progress, she can't help but think back to how the then principal, Adam Wiechmann, first reacted when she informed him of what happened to her during her freshman year in 2014. She said she felt as if she was being discounted and blamed. Quote, I just feel like they could have done so much more," end quote, Wade said. Quote, "They had so many chances to, but I don't think they wanted to," end quote. Section. In bold. Principal's letter. Allegations were, quote, "made up," end quote. End bold. Wade, now 19, had only been at West Lutheran for a couple months in 2014 when she made multiple complaints about 2 classmates who she said sexually harassed and assaulted her. Quote, "He touched my leg and he was trying to lift up my skirt," end quote, she said, recounting the first incident. Quote, "I asked him to stop and he wouldn't stop," end quote. In a separate instance, Wade said another boy moved his hand up her thigh, slipping it underneath her skirt during class. Soon after, Wade and her father, Rob, reported the misconduct to Wiechmann. The family said it felt as though the principal dismissed the teen's story. Quote, "There wasn't open ears to hear it," end quote, said Rob Wade. According to the Department of Human Rights investigation, the school, quote, "refused to follow its own policy and investigate the allegations," end quote, of sexual assault and harassment. Wiechmann instead reprimanded Wade for gossiping and accused her of fabricating the story to avoid being punished. In a letter sent home with Wade the day after she reported the assaults, Wiechmann wrote, quote, "Frankly, I believe that many of the things that Miranda has accused some boys of doing here at school is made up or drastically exaggerated," end quote. Quote, I didn't get why they didn't believe me, end quote, Wade said. The family confronted Wiechmann with a text message in which one of the boys admitted to trying to touch Wade. Wiechmann discussed the text with a Plymouth Police Department detective who had opened a criminal investigation into the assaults and harassment. In a recording of that interview, Wiechmann is heard saying, quote, it doesn't prove anything, I think, end quote. According to a letter from the Hennepin County Attorney's Office to the Wade family, one male student was ordered to counseling and anger replacement therapy, while the other was referred to a sexual boundaries class. Wiechmann left the school in 2018 and now teaches at Arizona Lutheran Academy in Phoenix. He did not respond to multiple requests for an interview. Section, bold, investigation leads to lawsuit, and bold. Internal records obtained by 5 investigators show that after the Department of Human Rights found probable cause that Wade had been discriminated against, it tried to reach a settlement with West Lutheran. Try and say that 5 times fast. When the parties were unable to reach an agreement, DHR asked the Minnesota Attorney General to step in and file a lawsuit, which is currently pending in civil court. Quote, this is a very big deal, end quote, said Tina Searing, an attorney who specializes in sexual harassment cases. Quote, not many are sent to the Attorney General's office for litigation. It's a very small percentage, end quote. Searing, who is not involved in the case, reviewed the records and believes Wiechmann's letter is evidence of retaliation against the teen. Quote, when I read that letter, it was one of a number of blame issues on the person who came forward with the complaint, which I don't think was appropriate, end quote, she said. Section, bold, not welcome back, and bold. Wade squints at the glossy pages of West Lutheran's yearbook from freshman year, scanning over candid photographs of her class. She's surprised to find a picture of herself, standing with 2 of her classmates during biology. Quote, I actually didn't know if I had any pictures in here because I never really looked through this yearbook, end quote, she said. Wade did not return to West Lutheran the following year. In its investigation, DHR found the school retaliated against. Side note, here it says retailed. I believe they meant retaliated. I continue reading. Retaliated against the teen after it rejected her registration for the following year. In August 2015, the Wades received a letter from then Principal Wiechmann that explained a decision had been made that, quote, it would be best for both Miranda and for our student body for Miranda to attend school elsewhere next year, end quote, and that the teen would not be allowed to re-enroll. Quote, I always thought high school was the best years of your life, but that year was definitely the worst year of my life, end quote, Wade said. In the lawsuit, DHR is asking that West Lutheran requires its employees undergo training on sexual harassment and differential treatment, submit reports to DHR regarding student discipline, and pay a civil penalty. A trial is scheduled for the summer of 2020. So as you can imagine, a young high school freshman girl, she gets assaulted. She goes to the principal to make her report. He doesn't believe her. He tells her as much. He then tells her family as much. Then, apparently, he's caught on tape talking with a detective who's investigating it, and he still doesn't believe her. Then he has the gall to tell her, you're not invited back, and keeping her from enrolling in the next school year if she decides she wanted to go. He was told what happened to her, and he didn't believe her and continued to refuse to believe her. Then, after the investigation into the two boys ended, with what sounds like at least somewhat promising results, her family backs Miranda up and goes to the Minnesota Department of Human Rights and say, "Who? Look at what we have here. Can you help us? Do we have a case?" They spend a couple of years investigating. Then they say, "Oh, well, we're going to try to settle this with the school." Then apparently the school refuses to settle, or at least is part of the reason why they can't settle. And then they up the case to the Attorney General's office so that they can take a look, and they decide the case is worth going forward on. While the case is going on, Adam Wiechmann leaves the school in 2018. While the whole system of charges is being investigated by the authorities, he decides, "Oh, I can't be here. I can't stay the entire time. I need to be called away." And apparently, Wells is okay with calling away a principal of a high school that's under legal investigation, because he left in 2018, got called to Arizona Lutheran Academy in Phoenix, Arizona, and as far as I can tell from the basic research I did, he never had to be called back. Now, I know that for most called workers, they generally have about 4 years they're expected to serve at a minimum at their current location before they're put back on the call list, or at least that is what is known as general knowledge around the congregations. Not knowing how long Adam Wiechmann has or had been serving at this high school, I can't speak to that part. I can only speak to the part where it looks bad that he is able to get called away to another congregation while there's an investigation into his actions. This doesn't even address that he was brought in to talk to a detective about the charges for at least what it sounds like, the initial case of sexual assault that Miranda Wade suffered from at least 2 individual parties. The same one where the 2 individuals, the teen boys, were given alternative punishments instead of jail to undergo. Not having found anything online as of yet about the case or cases against the 2 boys, I can only say that this particular case, it makes Adam Wiechmann look bad, especially if you consider that they're trusting journalistic integrity to be accurately reporting on it, which seems to be corroborated by the very fact that the sexual assault lawsuit against the school was settled, which I will get to in a moment. Going off of the very bare minimum we have here, Adam Wiechmann is at the very least suspicious, and it's even more suspicious that the Wells is okay with essentially transferring him out of that state into another state. Continuing on, I will transcribe this next article. This was updated January 27th, 2022, originally published February 27th, 2020. Titled, Minnesota Department of Human Rights Settles Sexual Assault Lawsuit Against Plymouth School. A judge has ordered a Twin Cities Lutheran school to make significant changes to the way it handles allegations of bullying and harassment. The Minnesota Department of Human Rights sued West Lutheran High School for discrimination and retaliation in 2019, claiming school officials failed to act after a female student had reported she'd been sexually harassed and assaulted by two fellow classmates. Miranda Wade, 19, told her story to 5 Eyewitness News in October, after 5 Investigates obtained records that showed the school's then principal, Adam Wiechmann, dismissed her story and accused her of making it up. Below that is the link to the article I transcribed earlier, called Doubting Miranda. I continue reading. The state will have oversight over West Lutheran High School in Plymouth for the next 3 years as part of a court-ordered consent decree that was approved Thursday. DHR Commissioner Rebecca Lucero said the comprehensive approach will ensure changes that benefit students. Quote, I think it sends a really clear message that this should not be tolerated, end quote, Lucero said in an interview with 5 Investigates. Quote, when these things happen, like they do everywhere, students need to make sure they are supported and corrective actions are taken, end quote. The consent decree requires West Lutheran High School to take immediate steps to, first point, develop, adopt, and publicly distribute written policies, including a social media policy that addresses and prevent bullying, harassment, and discrimination. Point 2, implement a comprehensive protocol for investigating every complaint of harassment, discrimination, and retaliation. Point 3, require all students, faculty, staff, and members of its Board of Regents sign a Code of Conduct pledge each school year that specifically addresses bullying, harassment, and discrimination. Point 4, add bullying and harassment as topics to the curriculum for a required class. Point 5, train all faculty, staff, students, and members of the Board of Regents annually on the school's obligations to create an environment that is free of discrimination, harassment, and bullying. Point 6, train all staff and officials responsible for conducting investigations with trauma-informed investigation training. And finally, point 7, report to the Minnesota Department of Human Rights the number of complaints made related to bullying, harassment, and discrimination, the steps taken to investigate the complaint, the outcomes of the investigation, and other information necessary. Quote, we want to have an impact here, Lucero said. Quote, we want to make sure these policies and procedures are being implemented and that they are having the intended effect, end quote. The consent decree is in effect for 3 years. If at any time West Lutheran fails to follow the requirements in the agreement, Minnesota's Department of Human Rights is allowed to seek civil penalties and other relief through the court process under the terms of the agreement. West Lutheran's Board of Regents Chairman Mark Kaesmeyer, spelled Kaesmeyer, who signed the consent decree on behalf of the school, could not be reached for comment. Due to a pending civil lawsuit, Miranda Wade and her family declined to comment through their attorney Thursday. The pending civil lawsuit is something that I am also looking into in terms of, was it successful? What was if there was a settlement, what kind of terms that settlement included, if there was even a settlement or if it actually went to court. So I'm still looking for the particulars of that civil lawsuit. However, I will be looking to see if Adam Wiechmann is mentioned in their civil lawsuit. Adam Wiechmann isn't mentioned in the settlement document particulars. However, his negligence and his, quite frankly, in my opinion, his harassment of Miranda, in this case appearing to be alleged harassment of Miranda over what she reported to him, that should have been investigated further, and it wasn't, at least from what I can initially tell. There's not much that the state can do to preempt a Wells call board from magically calling someone from their then current position as high school principal and sending them to another state. However, I wonder if Arizona Lutheran staff and students know this about their principal. They deserve to know, not only because, as far as I can tell, he never had to face a day in court because of this, but also, I don't know, and I don't know if anyone knows, if he truly admitted fault here and took responsibility for his actions. And that is really concerning, especially if you're going to have him be a principal of a high school where you have children that are gradually going through the process of becoming adults. That are closer to the process of becoming adults, and they need all the help and love and guidance and support in order to become adults, especially well-functioning adults. And to take that group of students that's already going through all of the drama, all of the emotional upheaval, all of the body changes, all of the biological changes that they're undergoing, and that they're practically all stewing together as they all suffer through this. And to put a principal who has this background of ignoring a student's report of sexual assault is concerning. At the very least, it's concerning. At the most, parents should be outraged and faculty should know this, because if there's a sexual assault allegation at Arizona Lutheran, who is going to help the student there? Or students, whoever reports the sexual assault there. Are the faculty going to help? Or are the faculty not going to do anything because the principal will tell them, no, we don't believe people who report here. We don't even feel an obligation to report it to the cops. Anyone comes forward with reports of sexual abuse, just deny, deny, deny. Just completely darvo them. And if police come up to you, well, don't be afraid, because I completely fucked up back in Minnesota and look what happened to me. I still have my career intact. Again, that is speculation on my part, but I am speculating that in transcribing all of this and reading all of this and posting it with him and Minnesota and Arizona tagged in this, because they deserve to know. Criminal history does not get spoken about in call meetings. If there are charges pending or if there is an investigation, None of that is known in a call meeting. Arizona Lutheran, for the most part, most likely, barring anything weird, like say Adam had a friend down there who helped the Wells talk to Adam and then said, okay, you can come on down here, be a principal here, and then you can ignore those pesky charges up in Minnesota. Barring something like that, most of the time the receiving congregation doesn't know anything about the person they're receiving, especially if there's any potential criminal or civil liability, especially something this big. And they should know about it, and I hope they know about it, either through this video or through the articles that I just transcribed. Moving on to the next site. This site is a Minnesota.gov site. Originally posted on February 27th, 2020. This article title reads, Minnesota Department of Human Rights Settlement Requires West Lutheran High School to Address Sexual Assault, Harassment, and Bullying of Students. A consent decree filed by the Minnesota Department of Human Rights and approved today by the Hennepin County District Court orders West Lutheran High School in Plymouth, Minnesota, to implement significant system changes that aim at ensuring students can live full lives free from sexual assault, harassment, and bullying. The consent decree settles the department's pending lawsuit against the school. The department filed suit in 2019 because it found the school violated the Minnesota Human Rights Act when school officials failed to act after a student reported she was sexually harassed and assaulted multiple times by other students. Quote, in bold, every school is obligated to actively protect students' civil rights, and no student should have to suffer from sexual assault, harassment, or bullying, end quote, and bold, said Minnesota Department of Human Rights Commissioner Rebecca Lucero. Quote, in bold, today's court order and consent decree will create immediate positive change for the students and families at West Lutheran High School. This case also sends a message to other schools across the state that they have an obligation to actively address and prevent bullying and sexual violence. End quote, end bold. The consent decree requires West Lutheran High School to take immediate steps to, point 1, develop, adopt, and publicly distribute written policies, including a social media policy, that address and prevent bullying, harassment, and discrimination. Point 2, implement a comprehensive protocol for investigating every complaint of harassment, discrimination, and retaliation. Point 3, require all students, faculty, staff, and members of its Board of Regents sign a Code of Conduct pledge each school year that specifically addresses bullying, harassment, and discrimination. Point 4, add bullying and harassment as topics to the curriculum for a required class. Point 5, train all faculty, staff, students, and members of the Board of Regents annually on the school's obligations to create a school environment that is free of discrimination, harassment, and bullying. Point 6, train all staff and officials responsible for conducting investigations with trauma-informed investigation training. And point 7, report to the Minnesota Department of Human Rights the number of complaints made related to bullying, harassment, and discrimination, the steps took to investigate the complaint, the outcomes of the investigation, and other information necessary. The Minnesota Department of Human Rights will monitor the consent decree for 3 years. If West Lutheran High School violates the decree, the Minnesota Department of Human Rights has the authority to seek civil penalties and other relief through the court to ensure the terms are followed. The consent decree involves the Minnesota Department of Human Rights and West Lutheran High School. It does not resolve any claims that the student or her family have against West Lutheran School. The Minnesota Department of Human Rights is the state's civil rights enforcement agency and enforces the Minnesota Human Rights Act. If you believe you have been discriminated against in violation of the Minnesota Human Rights Act, please contact MDHR at 651-539-1133 or 1-800-657-3704. or email info.mdhr@state.mn.us. For more information, please visit mn.gov/mdhr or follow the conversation on Twitter at @mnhumanrights. Below that is the document that links directly to the court document that is the West Lutheran High School Consent Decree. This is the settlement document that, as of current knowledge, and having not heard anything that would have extended the consent decree, expired last year. Here we see the stipulation and consent decree. Case file 27-CV-19-13131. In the state of Minnesota, County of Hennepin, 4th Judicial District. I find it interesting, before I begin reading, I find it interesting that West Lutheran High School Association, aka West Lutheran High School, is just listed as versus. There's no one listed as their attorney. I'm not going to read the entire document. What I will read are going to start with the recitals here, just so that you as the listener / watcher get a review of what the legal particulars of the case were to start with. First part, recitals. Whereas Robert Wade filed a charge of discrimination against West Lutheran High School on behalf of his then minor daughter. Whereas the Minnesota Department of Human Rights (MDHR) conducted an investigation into the allegations asserted in Robert Wade's charge. Whereas MDHR made findings of probable cause to believe that West Lutheran High School violated the Minnesota Human Rights Act, Minnesota Statutes, Chapter 363A, MHRA, end parentheses. Whereas the Commissioner commenced a lawsuit against West Lutheran High School filed in Hennepin County District Court, case number 27-CV-19-13131, lawsuit, end parentheses. The Commissioner alleged in the lawsuit that West Lutheran High School violated the MHRA, and the Commissioner sought damages, declaratory and injunctive relief. Whereas MDHR and the defendant have reached an agreement to resolve this matter to avoid the burden and expense of further litigation between the parties, and the parties wish to resolve their dispute in an amicable manner. In agreeing to these terms, MDHR and the defendant, acting by and through their counsel, engaged in arm's-length negotiations and a significant exchange of information. The parties have obtained sufficient information to assess reliably the relative merits and the claims and defenses. Throughout this process, MDHR and the defendant were represented by counsel knowledgeable in this area of the law. Whereas it is the finding of this court, made on the pleadings and on the record as a whole and upon agreement of the parties, that first, the requirements of the Minnesota Human Rights Act, Minnesota Statutes Chapter 363A, will be carried out by the implementation of this consent decree. 2. The terms of this consent decree constitute a fair and equitable settlement of all issues raised in the MDHR's complaint. And 3. This consent decree is intended to and does resolve claims of the MDHR pursuant to the MHRA that are contained in its complaint. Now, therefore, upon consent of MDHR and the defendant, in consideration of the mutual promises and recitals contained in this stipulation and consent decree, including the relinquishment of certain legal rights, the parties agree as follows. Part 2 is jurisdiction. This part is talking about the court having jurisdiction and will retain jurisdiction of the action. Part 3 is regarding the parties of the case. That's accurate. Part 3 is parties. What should be part 4 is, that's looking at part 3, is scope of consent decree. That should be part 4. The important part is this section. The parties to this stipulation and consent decree acknowledge that this does not resolve or purport to resolve any claims that Robert Wade, Nancy Wade, and/or Miranda Wade have or may have against West Lutheran High School. Listed as Part 4, Consent Decree Objectives. In addition to settling the claims of the parties, the objective of this stipulation and consent decree is to ensure West Lutheran High School's compliance with the Minnesota Human Rights Act, Minnesota Statutes Chapter 363A. West Lutheran reaffirms its commitment to comply with the MHRA. Section 5. Injunctive Relief. West Lutheran High School is hereby ordered to do the following. A. Policy review. West Lutheran High School agrees that it will develop and adopt written policies addressing its obligations under the MHRA to its students, or if policies already exist, West Lutheran High School will review and revise its policies as needed to ensure compliance with the MHRA and this agreement. The policies shall specifically address bullying, harassment, retaliation, and protecting members of all protected classes under the MHRA. In addition, West Lutheran High School agrees that it will develop and adopt a written social media policy that specifically addresses discrimination, bullying, harassment, and retaliation. Within 60 days of the effective date of this agreement, West Lutheran High School will submit these policies to the Commissioner of Human Rights, listing address, for review. If MDHR objects to the proposed or revised policies, West Lutheran High School will submit further revisions that address MDHR's objections within 10 days of receiving MDHR's objections. West Lutheran High School agrees it will publish all policies adopted or revised pursuant to this agreement, provide the policies to all current students, parents, or guardians of students, employees, and members of the school's Board of Regents, and make the policies available in locations around the school and in a format accessible to viewers on all public-facing and internal school websites. For a period of 3 years from the effective date of this agreement, West Lutheran High School agrees to submit any proposed modifications to these policies to MDHR for review. Such submissions shall be sent to the Commissioner of Human Rights at address listed there. The Commissioner shall have 60 days from the receipt of any such proposed modifications to provide written feedback, or it shall be presumed that the Commissioner approves any such proposed modifications. B. Harassment investigations. West Lutheran High School agrees that it will revise its student handbook to include a protocol for investigating complaints of harassment, or if its student handbook already contains such a protocol, West Lutheran High School will review and revise its student handbook as needed to ensure compliance with the MHRA and this agreement. The protocol for investigating complaints of harassment in the student handbook shall, at a minimum, specify and identify multiple avenues to report allegations of harassment, discrimination, and retaliation. Guarantee that every report will be investigated and specify and identify who conducts investigations of complaints of harassment, how the investigations are conducted, and who makes the final determination for the investigation. West Lutheran High School's protocol shall require that the investigations of complaints of harassment shall be conducted by 3 individuals. In addition, West Lutheran High School will modify all staff performance reviews or appraisals to require that, among other criteria, staff will be evaluated on their compliance with the policies that are referenced in or created by this agreement. Within 60 days of the effective date of this agreement, West Lutheran High School shall forward the student handbook with the investigation protocol to the Commissioner of Human Rights at address provided there for review. If MDHR objects to the proposed or revised policies, West Lutheran High School will submit further revisions that address MDHR's objections within 10 days of receiving MDHR's objections. For a period of 3 years from the effective date of this agreement, West Lutheran High School agrees to submit any proposed modifications to this protocol to MDHR for review. Such submissions shall be sent to the Commissioner of Human Rights at address listed there. Commissioner shall have 60 days from the receipt of any such proposed modifications to provide written feedback, or it shall be presumed that the Commissioner approves any such proposed modifications. C. Code of Conduct. West Lutheran High School agrees to require its students, faculty, and staff, and members of its Board of Regents to sign a Code of Conduct pledge at the start of each school year. The Code of Conduct pledge must be signed within 30 days of the start of fall semester classes, or within 30 days of first attendance, hire, or appointment, whichever is earlier. The Code of Conduct pledge must specifically address bullying, harassment, and discrimination. By June 30th, 2020, West Lutheran High School shall forward the Code of Conduct pledge to the Commissioner of Human Rights at address listed there for review. If MDHR objects to the proposed or revised policies, West Lutheran High School will submit further revisions that address MDHR's objections within 10 days of receiving MDHR's objections. For a period of 3 years from the effective date of this agreement, West Lutheran High School agrees to submit any proposed modifications to this Code of Conduct pledge to MDHR for review. Such submissions shall be sent to the Commissioner of Human Rights at address listed there. The Commissioner shall have 60 days from the receipt of any such proposed modifications to provide written feedback, or it shall be presumed that the Commissioner approves any such proposed modifications. D. Class curriculum. West Lutheran High School agrees to add bullying and harassment as topics to a class curriculum for a required class, or if such curricula already exist, West Lutheran High School will review and revise such curricula as needed to ensure compliance with the MHRA and this agreement. Within 60 days of the effective date of this agreement, West Lutheran High School shall forward proof that West Lutheran High School includes bullying and harassment in its curriculum for a required class to the Commissioner of Human Rights at address listed there for review. If MDHR objects to the proposed or revised policies, West Lutheran High School will submit further revisions that address MDHR's objections within 10 days of receiving MDHR's objections. E. Training for students, board members, and faculty and staff. For a period of 3 school years beginning with the 2020 to 2021 school year, West Lutheran High School agrees to annually train all members of the West Lutheran High School Board of Regents, all West Lutheran High School faculty and staff, and all West Lutheran High School students on West Lutheran High School's obligations under the MHRA, with an emphasis on harassment and bullying. West Lutheran High School shall provide separate trainings to its Board of Regents members, its faculty and staff, and its students. Training for the Board of Regents in all West Lutheran High School faculty and staff shall take place before the start of classes each school year. Training for the students shall take place within 30 days of the start of fall semester classes, or within 30 days of when a student starts attending school, whichever is earlier. If a faculty member, staff member, regent, or student joins West Lutheran High School following the annual training for that year, that person must be trained within 30 days following their hire, appointment, or first class attendance. Additionally, as soon as practicable and before the end of the current 2019 to 2020 school year, West Lutheran High School agrees to train all members of the West Lutheran High School Board of Regents, all West Lutheran High School faculty and staff, and all West Lutheran High School students on West Lutheran High School's obligations under the MHRA, with an emphasis on harassment and bullying. West Lutheran High School shall provide separate trainings to its Board of Regents members, its faculty and staff, and its students. By June 30th, 2020, West Lutheran High School shall submit to MDHR verification that the training has been completed, including the names of the individuals who conducted the training, the dates the training occurred, and the length and content of the training. West Lutheran High School shall send the verification to the Commissioner of Human Rights at address listed there. MDHR will have 30 days from the receipt of the verification to notify West Lutheran High School of any concerns with the training. F. Training for staff and officials who investigate harassment. For a period of 3 school years beginning with the 2020 to 2021 school year, West Lutheran High School agrees to annually provide all West Lutheran High School staff and officials responsible for conducting investigations of complaints of harassment with trauma-informed investigation training. Training shall be completed each year prior to the start of fall semester classes. If an official or staff member is newly hired or assigned to conduct investigations, that person must be trained prior to conducting any investigations. By October 30th of each year, West Lutheran High School shall submit to MDHR verification that the training has been completed, including the names of the individuals who conducted the training, the names and titles of the individuals who completed the training, the dates the training occurred, and the length and content of the training. West Lutheran High School shall send the verification to the Commissioner of Human Rights at address listed here. MDHR will have 30 days from receipt of the verification to notify West Lutheran High School of any concerns with the training. G. Documentation and reporting. For a period of 3 years following the effective date of this agreement, West Lutheran High School agrees to contemporaneously document the following regarding each complaint of bullying. Bullying has a definition that's listed below that I will not be reading today. Harassment and/or discrimination in writing. 1. Complainant. 2. Alleged perpetrator. 3. The steps West Lutheran High School took to investigate the complaints. 4. Outcome of the investigation. And 5. Any other information necessary to show West Lutheran High School's compliance with its policies and procedures related to bullying, harassment, and/or discrimination. For a period of 3 years following the effective date of this agreement, West Lutheran High School agrees to report to MDHR on a biannual basis after each semester. 1. The number of complaints made to West Lutheran High School related to bullying, harassment, and discrimination. 2. The steps West Lutheran High School took to investigate the complaints. 3. The outcomes of West Lutheran High School's investigations. And 4. Any other information necessary to show West Lutheran High School's compliance with its policies and procedures related to bullying, harassment, and/or discrimination. Pausing there and scrolling down to this page, the end page of the document, page 16, we can see that it was signed and dated on February 25th, 2020 by Rebecca Lucero and dated February 24th, 2020 by Mark Kessmeyer. I want to note a couple more things before I end this video. Ultimately, West Lutheran High School received a $5,000 fine. The guidelines that they're supposed to abide by as part of the settlement only lasted for 3 years. And remember, the 3 years started with the 2020 to 2021 school year. So unless they got extended, they don't apply to this school year. Also, again, to reiterate, as far as I know, I don't see any record of charges having been filed against Adam. This is still an ongoing investigation that I'm conducting. If I find out more information, I will link that. I will create a video of that and link that to the end of this video. And finally, remember that this information will not appear in a call meeting for called workers. Do your best to be on the lookout for called workers in your church, in your loved ones' churches, and keep an ear out for any news like this. Minnesota West Lutheran High School was lucky, so to speak. The rules imposed on them by the state forced them to adhere to a higher standard. As far as we know, as far as I know, the rules for the Arizona Wells Lutheran High School there are not of the same standard. That concludes today's video. Please let me know what you thought of this, and I will see you in the next one.
We can choose to be better.